We are back in the German Mosel, actually, after our small trip to Luxembourg. And as you can see, today is like a very realistic day being in the vineyard. It's raining a little bit.
We're quite happy after the long dry period that we have some rain today. So we are more optimistic than pessimistic about the rain.
Very lovely. And I'm standing here with Daniel Molitor from the Weingut Viermorgen.
Yes.
Stairs and Roses.
Yeah, it's a Weingut Viermorgenhof. It's the parents' line, and Stairs and Roses is a project of my wife Julia and me. Yeah, and we're talking mainly about the Stairs and Roses wines today, I guess.
Beautiful. But Daniel, before we go into the winery and we talk a little bit about your philosophy and the wines and so on, let's start with our beginning, how we usually do it. You get 4 questions from me. The first one you get is, if you wouldn't be a winemaker today, what would be your alternative path of life?
So in fact, there's already a second life for me. So besides being, I don't consider myself as a winemaker, more as a viticulturist in brackets. But although I have a second activity, I'm working in Luxembourg in research in viticulture. So it's mainly doing research about climate change adaptation, although pesticide reduction is a big topic. So there's a second life in parallel already.
So that is basically like a good answer to the question. So you don't have to make something up like, oh, yes, I would have done this or this or this.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
So, and you are, so to say, part-time researcher, part-time winemaker.
Exactly.
So let's come to the winemaking part. If you have to think about like somebody or some school of inspiration that really shaped your idea of winemaking and how you do it today.
Yes, and in fact, you asked me the question before, and I was thinking a bit about this, and it was difficult for me to find a single person I have in mind. So our idea is maybe more to have a look around and maybe get some good ideas from someone else, but there's not a single person which really inspired us that much that it's, yeah, we try to copy them. So there are different people doing different things. And some ideas we liked, we adapted to our conditions and tried to do it in our way.
Beautiful. And I think we probably will talk about some of your colleagues and how you work with your colleagues about certain PV challenges, etc. in a bit. Let's first go on to question number 3. If you have to describe your personality as a bottle of wine.
As a bottle of wine, I was thinking. Yeah, I understood the question when I saw it, that it's mainly about which wine is describing us the best. And then I came to the next generation. Should I take the bottle because we have one here?
We could. If you have the next generation here, then let's talk about next generation.
This is maybe the wine which is, yeah, our heart project. So it's a cuvée of 3 PV cultivars. And what you see here behind, we have a vineyard with around 45 different PV cultivars, and this is our passion a bit. Yeah, maybe passion is a good term for this. And here we have 3 PVs in this wine, and it's showing the footprint of our 3 sons, which is also passion and important for our life. It's our next generation and the cultivars of the next generation. That's why I would choose this maybe as the wine describing us the best.
And maybe also coming back to the personality part, a little bit like you, right? Because you seem like to be like a very researching spirit, looking forward spirit,
exactly,
innovative in that regard. So that fits really, really well.
We are always very curious, and if we have a new idea, we would like to try it out in the field. Sometimes it's working, in most cases it's working, in some cases not, but this is also what makes the job that interesting, to try different things, and to continue to be motivated in discovering new knowledge.
Let's taste it before we go to question number 4. I mean, interrupting the rhythm a little bit like we usually do it, which I like actually. It's good to mix things up.
And the rain is getting stronger, but it's okay after the long period of drought. I like it.
You as a winemaker, you are used to it. I'm the guy sitting in the office all day, so we survive. But it's beautiful here. I mean, and which PV cultivars are in the bottle?
So in total, we have a vineyard of 5 PV cultivars directly behind in smaller quantities, 300 or 400 plants. And this is a cuvée of Cabernet Blanc, Sauvignac, and Hibernal. So Cabernet Blanc and Sauvignac, most people know. Hibernal is a bit
unknown one.
Unknown, yeah. It's a secret favorite for me because I like it a lot. It has very intense fruit aroma. And the idea behind this wine was to build a PV wine into the direction of a Sauvignon Blanc. So it's a blend of the three. All of them are giving some input to the wine. We have some paprika aroma, but we also have a lot of intense fruitiness. And it's also
like gooseberry, green apple, pear, aromatics, citric in a certain way, a little bit of lime even. Like
It's more on the greener side, so it's not extremely full ripe, but it's supposed to be refreshing and it's quite intense. If you pour it out in the glass, and then you already smell a lot of aroma, and this is also the style we like a lot. So fruity wines, quite loud in this case, and
but also just like perfect for like sitting just like on a nice summer day, right in the sun and chilling. I mean, it's also like fairly what I have with these PV cuvées. Often they come fairly uncomplicated in a certain way, highly aromatic but uncomplicated.
It's easy drinking. It's enjoying. Yeah,
it's beautiful.
Yeah,
really like it. Maybe building like a bridge, because now we talked already so much about PV, but the fourth question I have for the introduction, so to say, to get you to know a bit better, it's more like an open statement. Nature, and what does it mean for you and the work in the vineyard and the work with wine?
Yeah, when I think about nature, I also think about the landscape, which you don't see at the moment, but maybe we can take a picture afterwards. I'm born here, but people from abroad are usually quite impressed by the nature landscape we have here in the Mosel Valley. But nature also means for me PVs. So we try to limit our impact, so less pesticides are necessary because they are more resistant. And it's also natural. It's not a natural crossing, but it's not a genetic crossing. So it's a classical crossing of cultivars which are already existing in the world. Maybe nature, it's a bit difficult term in this case, but it's we try to be as natural as possible. And when I saw the term nature, I was also thinking about our Petnat, which I consider as being a natural wine, so unfiltered and
perfectly suited to the Scandinavian landscape, definitely, when it comes to that.
So nothing added and nothing taken out, just bottled. And this what's also Petnat makes for me that interesting, because once it's bottled, you cannot change it anymore. So it's a black box, and it's a big surprise when the fermentation is finished, which will be the result, but we cannot interfere anymore. And this is also a natural product for me when I think about nature.
Let's try this in a second. I think before we dive into it, I would like you to introduce the winery a little bit to us. So who is Viermorgenhof Stairs and Roses?
So Viermorgenhof is in fact the name of the estate of the parent generation. And when my wife Julia and me married in 2015, Julia is also coming from a wide estate. This is normal here in the valley. You stay in your community, sometimes at least. And when we married, we had the idea to produce our own wines, which are different to the wines from the parent generation. Not because we did not like them, but because we wanted to have a broader view or to discover new things. A lot of producers are very famous for the Rieslings here, and they fit perfectly to our terroir. But it's also the idea to do things slightly different. And when we were searching for the name, we came to Stairs and Roses. You might ask why. Stairs and Roses, the story behind this, Julia, my wife, is from Erden. So it's 3 kilometers in this direction. There's a famous Erdener Treppchen. The Treppchen is the small staircase. And just here on the other side, we have the Kinhammer Rosenberg. So it's the best vineyard from our side, maybe not as famous as the Erdener Treppchen. And the Mountain of Roses and the little staircase we tried to combine, and then we came up with the brand Stairs and Roses, where all wines have a specific story behind, and also the labels are not traditional Mosel style. Yeah, this is a bit of playground for us where we do all the things which are not conservative traditional Mosel wines.
And you're running 7 hectares today, correct?
In total, we have 7 hectares. We have a slight focus on PVs, and we also do relatively a lot of minimal pruning system, where we can also have a look later. Yes, but also the steep slope vineyards, south exposed, which are the traditional Mosel vineyards, also describing the landscape a lot.
So, and maybe like talking a little bit about the transition from your father's perspective from the vineyard, Viermorgenhof, to Stairs and Roses. I mean, now we are like in a very interesting position here because we are standing on a northwards facing slope actually for the Mosel in general, like something new coming because it's getting warmer and warmer.
Exactly.
You talk about this whole like PV garden that we are standing in, where you are having 45 different PV varieties that you are looking at how they work with the climate. You talk about the minimum pruning, where you basically nearly do nothing in the vineyard anymore.
Yeah, it's like a hedge.
So how did your father react to it, and how did the transition from his generation to your generation work?
We are quite lucky that he's very open-minded. So at the beginning, maybe he was a bit skeptical, but I don't know. He never communicated this. So this is really an advantage for us compared to other colleagues where the older generation is a bit more critical. So yeah, he let us more or less do what we had in mind to get our own experience. But meanwhile, he's also convinced of at least most of the things we are doing. So
he's still very active in the vineyard, as you told me before.
Yeah, yes.
So
he's every day in the vineyard more or less, and yeah, he likes it, and it keeps him in good shape and quite fit, working in the vineyard every day.
I can imagine. Shall we dive into the pet nut?
Yes, good point. One of our favorites.
I mean, pet nut definitely something that is extremely popular these days, I guess. I don't know how it is in Germany, but in Scandinavia, I mean, people are really, really happy about it.
Me personally as well. It's nothing for the very traditional wine drinkers, I would say, or at least not the local people here. It's more for the more open-minded people. And to be honest, it's my favorite at the moment. So every time a bottle is open, it's empty, getting empty quite fast. And it's also, yeah, you see the bubbles are coming. It's a cuvée of 2 PVs. It's Sauvignac Gris and also some Hibernal. Yeah, at the beginning it's a bit closed, but if there's some oxygen entering, it will be quite intense also in fruitiness.
But also nice contact on the skins it had for a while, the Sauvignac Gris, or how did you work this?
It's not an orange. Usually we have some skin contact for some hours, and then it's pressed. Yeah, then at the end of the fermentation we just bottle it, and yeah, it's a black box. But
it happens afterwards.
Yeah, and it's a 3rd edition so far. Everything went well, and we are quite happy with the result. It's
very nice, like tannic with the structure. There's actually substance. Got a little bit of malolactic, I guess, right? Because
honestly, I don't know.
You don't know. Okay.
I don't know exactly what's happening. Yeah, since we cannot change it. So the
super nice peach and apricot fruit aromatics, and
peach, some maracuja, passion fruit,
some orange touch here. Really, I find it fairly creamy and cheesy in a certain way. So I'm pretty sure there was some malolactic going on there. Super cool. It's like apricot yogurt. You know?
Yeah. So then it's most likely that with some malolactic fermentation.
I mean, I can understand why you fairly often share this with people because it's very, very, very lovely to drink. Very easy. So talking about pet nut, you have an interesting project going on as I learned in Luxembourg, with a winemaker called Corinne Cox from L&R Cox, who also will be exhibiting at the Cool Climate Wine Summit 26, as you do.
Yes, so
and a third winemaker, where you, how is it called, the patent that you're doing?
It's will be called Tirage à Trois.
Tirage à Trois.
It's in French, and it's a project. We consider this as a project from 3 different countries. There's from the Saar, which is part of Germany, but they're also always a bit, they are different than we are. From Germany or from Rhénanie-Palatinat, so from Rhineland Palatinate, this is the correct term, and from Luxembourg. So we have the 3 countries. We have 3 PV cultivars. We have Cabernet Blanc, Sauvignac, and also Hibernal. And we brought together the wines, and then in Remisch, Corinne Cox from Domaine Cox made the second fermentation. And it has been just degorged, and the labels just arrived. It will be labeled the next days. And we are quite happy with the result, to be honest. So it's a nice approach from different terroirs, bringing together different producers. And we are all member of the PV group or club or association Vision Mosel, and in this context we had the idea to produce a wine, in this case Viermorgenhof, a sparkling wine from the 3 different regions. And it's not a pet nut, but it's it's with second fermentation like a sect or cremant.
And I found it kind of interesting when I visited Corinne 3 days ago that she actually now also released her first Cremant de Luxembourg, totally based on PV. So it's also something she really looks into. And what I really like about it, and maybe you could put some words to it. I mean, now you are working in Luxembourg at the Scientific Institute there, and you have this group Vision Mosel, where we have 2 Luxembourg producers, L&R Cox and Sven Hoffmann, both as members, who both come to the Cool Climate Summit. I know also from the Mosel Weinverein, from Ansgar Schmitz, that they also often try to work together with Luxembourg. So is there more and more of kind of exchange and understanding to think the Mosel as the bigger picture than just Germany?
There's also the initiative Terroir Mosel, which brings together the producers from the French, from the Luxembourgish, and from the German Mosel. And we consider ourselves as one region with borders, but they are more or less disappearing. And also what makes it interesting, the terroir is quite different. So we have on the Luxembourgish or on the upper German Mosel region, we have this the limestone soil, which is more they consider themselves as part of the Paris Basin, so the Kimmerich
soil that is basically Champagne, Chablis, Northern Burgundy.
Exactly. And here we have the slate stone soil, and they are very different, but they could also fit together. This was the idea. And although if we have presentations with different producers, wine is always a question of personal taste, and some people like more the typical German Mosel style or middle Mosel style based on the Schiefer terroir, and some others prefer more the wines from the limestone regions. And it's always very interesting to discover all the wines from other producers which are different, and although the exchange is quite important. Everyone has some experiences, and we are learning quite a lot from each other, not to repeat the same mistakes in our own conditions, which other producers already made. And for the Vision Mosel, there's also a lot of exchange. There are a lot of PV cultivars, and it's always good to know what is the experience of the others with cultivars we might have in mind. And maybe sometimes they say, okay, this is great, go for it. And sometimes they say, okay, keep in mind that there are some problems also linked to some of the cultivars. And that's quite interesting.
I love this whole approach about it, because this is really also one of the I think what I told you also when we for the first time spoke, and what I told many of the winemakers, is really a focus of the Cool Climate Wine Summit, not only to be a trade fair for you winemakers, of course, and present your products, but we also want to link people in those cool climate growing areas, right? As the Polish winemakers who nearly exclusively work with PVs, the Danish winemakers, very much PV focus, Belgium, but also like this young generation, maybe in your case, yeah,
mid-old generation,
the young-minded generation,
okay,
and spirited generation that now really like also sees the impact of climate change and thinks about alternatives, right? And
definitely.
I love it that there's so much exchange going on regarding PV varietals. I think it's a very important topic that we also focus on, especially. So, looking at global warming, climate change, what is your perspective on what is going on? What are the challenges that you are fearing the most at the moment for the future?
Yeah, in fact, what we are facing at the moment is that we have this long-lasting periods of stable weather conditions. So we had the last 6 weeks, I guess I already mentioned it, very dry condition. And we also had in the previous years summers where it was raining every day, and we cannot anticipate what's happening. And this is for me the biggest challenge. Of course, we have the warming. The traditional cultivars are always getting ripe, which was not the case in the 80s or in the 70s. But now the big challenge is for me the extreme weather events and the extremely stable weather conditions. And for this, although PVs make sense, because if it's dry, if it's wet all summer, we always get problems with fungal diseases, especially downy mildew in the traditional cultivars. But if we have the PVs, we might have some symptoms, but we never lose the whole yield. And it's also kind of a risk strategy for us to have new cultivars with higher resistance, which are also able to produce good quality and also, quantity. This is also important that we have a stable yield with the new cultivars. That's why we are very convinced about the PVs.
And maybe like another thing we can talk about, because I talked about it very openly as with other winemakers. I mean, you are now in your case, for example, I mean, everybody can hear that you work as sustainable and as thoughtful as possible, but you are, for example, not organically certified. And I think we hear more and more in the industry that we have winemakers working very natural, very close to the purest way possible to work with nature, but they don't go for the organic certification. Because my impression is that the organic certification as we have it today is actually not ready for what is really happening in the field with global warming and climate change. Is this something that you see too, that it is too restrictive sometimes in terms of how we have to react in the vineyard?
Yes, so for me, it's the most sustainable way of production is with PV cultivars, which by themselves also have the option to reduce the pesticide input by 70-80%. If we consider the traditional cultivars, also in organic viticulture, it's necessary to treat them. Especially in the wet years, you will not harvest anything.
Like 2024, for example, very challenging.
2021. So if you go for organics, you have to treat them anyhow. You have a limited number of products which are not as efficient as the products you have in integrated management. So there you have to treat quite frequently. And for me, I'm not convinced that it's more sustainable to produce organic. We prefer the approach to limit the pesticide use to the necessary minimum, but in cases of really high disease pressure, to also use chemical. Always sounds a bit negative, but they are all registered pesticide, which also has a negative touch. But the truth is, viticulture with the traditional cultivars without plant protection is not possible. So,
and the truth is also that when we talk chemicals or pesticide use in agriculture, the European Union probably has the highest standards in the whole world when it is about consumer safety, right?
Yes.
So we always have this like bad word, but I also heard it from like some Luxembourg producers and from many other producers that another point that we never talk about is we talk always about the sustainability of like making the wine in nature, etc.
Exactly.
But there's also the financial sustainability of the winemaker and the product, right? Because
this is one of the big reasons why in certain conditions where it's really the disease pressure is high, you have a lower risk if you use products which are not registered for organic production, but they are anyhow tested. And that's why we go in this direction. Yes, but especially in the Vision Mosel, we have a lot of producers also certified as organic, and there's a lot of exchange, and the difference are not as huge anymore. There's always the terms about conventional and organic plant protection, but what we do is, for us, it's integrated management.
Yeah.
We try to limit the pesticides, and we try to include as many as possible other strategies to secure the yield, but also to reduce the risk for the non-target organisms, so for the environment, but also for beneficial insects growing in the vineyard, or not growing, living in the vineyard. This is our approach.
And I think also, like, we should link here in the show notes to the interview with Corinne Cox, because we work with her anyway very closely, right?
Exactly.
I talked with her a lot about viti forestry, which also is something you are looking into, and you're actually supporting her with her research project in Luxembourg, where you have two weather stations, looking at the differences. So I think if anybody's interested in this, she has also this very holistic approach, creating the, let's say, most resilient vineyard possible. So you have to have as little intervention at the end of the day, right?
Yes, also to increase biodiversity. And also one of the ideas behind the viti forest is to have kind of a shadow protecting the grapes against sunburn, but also the big problem is the high radiation drying out the soil. And if we have the years which are extremely dry, it might be beneficial to have more shadow and to keep the soil water reservoir longer to feed the plants. And for me, it's an interesting question, but quite an open question. Let's see what the results will be.
Looking forward to it. So to round it off, people can meet you in January at the Cool Climate Wine Summit. Or if you have seen this venue or listened to this interview and you're interested in these wines, reach out to Daniel, and he probably share some samples with you and gets on a call.
Yes.
But to round it off,
would be very happy. Yeah.
5 years from now, where are you and where stays and roses?
It's a good question. My feeling is, so since 2016, we just planted PV cultivars, and we will have some plantings in the coming years. And for me, this is the way into the future with the new cultivars, more climate change resilient. This is always the term, but also opening new aroma spectra. And this is what I'm very interested in. Always curious to discover new aroma, new things. And I guess we will further go into the direction. But on the other hand, we are a Riesling region, and the most famous Riesling wines are coming from our region. So even in 5 years or in 10 or in 20 years, there will be still great Rieslings from our region. The challenge will be to adapt to climate change, to keep the typicity, but I guess it will be a combination of both. New cultivars, but all the Riesling should be typical for Mosel.
Wonderful. Thanks for your time.
Let's see what will be happening. Maybe we will meet in 5 years again and discuss. Maybe
I hope so.
We made it might be, the view might be different. So there's always adaptation necessary.
Maybe the whole Mosel is only planting PV in 5 years. Who knows?
Let's see.
Let's see. We have no clue yet. It's exciting to see this. Daniel, thank you for having me here, and see you in
January. Thanks for your visit. I'm looking forward to it, and
cheers.
Yeah, it's empty, but cheers anyhow.
We fill it.